Hello and welcome to the DTN Podcast. DTN stands for Digital Tourism in the Nordics and is a collaboration between the Icelandic Tourist Board, Visit Faroe Islands, Visit Finland and Visit Greenland. This is our first episode and we will talk about all kinds of things COVID-19 related. We might all be tired of that by now, but we're still all recovering, and especially the tourism industry. We would like to talk about what has changed in the digital business environment during COVID-19, what kind of changes we would like to keep post-COVID and what not. And we will also talk about in which way the Nordics might possibly have an advantage when it comes to recovering tourism post the pandemic. My name is Inga Rós Antoníusdóttir. I am responsible for digital development at the Icelandic Tourist Board. And with me, I have great guests today who have great experience from working within tourism in their respective countries. We have Otto Eskelinen from Finland. We have Adam Kjeldsen from Greenland. We have Björg Árnadóttir from Iceland and Tummas Rubeksen from the Faroe Islands. And I welcome you all. I also would like to thank you, all our listeners, for being with us and listening. And I encourage you all to visit dtnordics.com, where we share a lot of valuable content related to digitalization and tourism, all focused on small and medium-sized tourism companies in the Nordic countries. If we start with Björg Árnadóttir sitting right next to me and let you introduce yourself and why you're here.
My name is Björg and I come from a company named Midgard. Midgard is twofold. It's like Midgard Adventure and Midgard Base Camp. Midgard is located 1.5 hours outside of Reykjavik, which is our privilege. The adventure part is split into two. It's the travel agency and the tour operator as well. And then we have Midgard Base Camp, our base, where we have like accommodation for 65 people. And we have a really nice restaurant as well.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Björg. How about you, Adam? Would you like to go next?
Fine. Hi, my name is Adam Miki Kjeldsen. I run a company called Two Ravens based in Nuuk in Greenland. We offer everything out in the nature. We're a two-man company so far, and we work all year round. We started less than a year before the outbreak, the COVID came, so it's been quite tough, but we're kind of making the wheel spinning still. Yeah, it's pretty much us.
Great job. Thank you. How about you, Otto? What can you tell us about yourself?
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Otto Eskelinen. I'm from Finland and I work for a company called Natura Viva. And thank you for asking for us to participate in this podcast. Natura Viva is a company that provides all kinds of services for people that want to visit nature, and we have three destinations in southern Finland. One very close to, or in Helsinki, archipelago, Vuosaari Paddling Center. Then we have Nuuksio National Park. We have a destination there, and then also in Teijo National Park, which is halfway from Helsinki to Turku, also very close to the sea. And we provide different types of accommodation, rental services, tours and courses for our customers.
Excellent. Thank you very much. How about you, Tummas?
Yeah, hi. My name is Tummas. I'm from the Faroes. And I run a company that's called Heimdal Tours. And we are based here in Tórshavn, the capital in the Faroes. And unlike you guys, we have a very manageable country. It's easy to get around here, so we cover all of the islands pretty much. We are focusing on the incoming part and all the experience you can do here in the Faroes, like hiking, kayaking, sailing, fishing, home dining, helping with booking restaurants, etc. Our main focus has been since the start to have a a sustainable focus, working with smaller groups and individuals. Always have an eye on the sustainability in the area that we're operating in. And so that's pretty much, what we do.
Perfect. Thank you so much. As you can hear, you have a lot in common, although none of you are handling the exact same issues or offering the exact same products. I wonder, because you mentioned that the Faroe Islands are easier to handle, I wonder how many Faroe Islands we could fit into Greenland, for example. But we can make that calculation at a later point.
Well, I can tell you that you can fit about 7 Faroe Islands into Vatnajökull. So,
well, there you go. Regarding our topic, COVID-19, tourism industry, all things related. If we could just start with discussing, where were you guys when this whole pandemic started, when you heard about the first lockdowns, and what did you do at that point in your companies? Maybe we could start with you, Otto.
I started working with Natura Viva. I think it was March 2020, and in Finland, at that point we had the situation that we had a couple of cases of COVID-19, and then at the end of March, I think we had the first like official information with the government speaking about the oncoming restrictions and guidelines regarding how we should all behave here in Finland to not to spread the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And of course we first started to work from home and started thinking about the summer, which is our main season for our business, and started thinking about the most potential forms of business that we can do during the summer and the businesses that we can't do during the summer. So basically the next months, March, April, May, we worked from home and had several meetings with the company and discussed what we should do and what kind of services we should develop in order to sustain the business throughout the pandemic.
Yeah. Was for the rest of you, was this a similar approach, or were there any differences in what was going on in the beginning for you guys?
If I may take the word, I remember when I first heard about this, I was in India in January with my husband. We were learning to become yoga teachers. And I remember how, like, when he mentioned this virus, how ridiculous I thought it was. Mm. And then we came home, and in February, of course, this starts to affect us. Late February, that's when it starts to hit. And then not knowing, having all the cancellations and not knowing what would happen with the accommodation and the restaurant, all the stress that followed, trying to keep the business open, running a restaurant and an accommodation, always being afraid of having somebody getting sick there, people getting into quarantine. And I remember we just closed down the accommodation and the restaurant mid-March. And I remember when I was driving from Hvolsvöllur, where we have our business, to Reykjavik, I was about to start to cry, but there was still a lot of relief, just because of this relief of not needing to confront the possible sicknesses and people getting sick at our place, but still this sorrow of not having any clue on what would happen. But my privilege, my own privilege, was that I started working with the tracing team in Iceland the day after I closed down the business, but still with sorrow in my heart, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Trying times for sure. Any further input on that?
We had actually, it was pretty much exactly a year after we started our company, after we funded our company. The outbreak came and we had things going, pretty fast. Within a year, we had landed some bigger jobs, longer ones. And at the same time, we sent a friend of us from the company representing the company to an Icelandic sailing company making a ski movie, sailing from Iceland to Greenland. So when the outbreak came, actually, they had just left Iceland towards Greenland. This was in March, in the beginning of March, pretty harsh times to sail in. But they were actually, when Greenland made the lockdown, they were sent back. They were 2 days out on the sea and had to head back home. So it was like, that was the first bomber, and then all the cancellations. Mm-hmm. But, we were still at the build-up phase. So, it was tough, but it became a little bit tougher with time. We put the focus on the local stuff instead. That's how we did.
And Tummas, was your experience similar? And what did you do to survive these times in the beginning? I mean, business-wise, were there any steps that you took early on?
My problem was that I was actually, when the lockdown hit, I was on a ski vacation in Austria. So
great place to be.
There, and who would have thought when I came back 4 days after, it turned out that I had COVID. So, and I had to be isolated. So I was out of office for about 3 weeks after. My business partner at the time, he just tried to steady the boat because by the second half of March and all the way to September, our calendar was pretty much full. And of course, then all the cancellations, they just started coming in. And some people, they just wanted to, see what happened. And, and other people, they wanted their money back that they had paid in their deposits and stuff. So it was the important thing in the beginning was just having a big focus on the cash flow in the company to just make sure that we didn't run out of cash all of a sudden. And we managed that quite well. But there was this big lockdown and there weren't any tourists coming in. And our problem was that our main focus had always been outside of Scandinavia. Our focus was on the US and the Asian market. So that's where all our customers came from. And the borders were basically shut down for those people. They couldn't come in. So when they started slowly to open again towards the Scandinavian market in July, there was not much business in it. Our focus was just to maintain good relations with the clients that we had and the agents that we were working with, to make sure that they would send as much people, just postpone their travels for a year, which many of them did. And just making sure that we had enough money in the company to pay the bills. And I have like a small farm on the side, so I was working on, there was a lot of work that needed to be done there, so I wasn't bored at any time. But regarding to the tourism, it kind of just went into a halt for weeks. In the autumn, it picked up a little bit until everything shut down again. And then, it was slow until June this year. And then by the end of July, we had a real catch-up effect when everyone started coming at the same time. And just to try to manage that whole situation. And in the meantime, I took over the whole company myself. Going from no business to have more than any time before, it was not easy, but we managed quite well. The problem was when kind of this went over was to get people to work for you, because as in everywhere else, there were no people. There's no unemployment here in the Faroes, so getting people to help you out with something is not easy. So it's been it's been a lot of, you just make it as it comes. pretty much.
Of course.
It's hard to stick to a plan.
This is why you hired the Raven, or this is why you have the Raven.
Yeah, that guy there. Yeah. No, he came a bit too close to a gun.
And I mean, your companies, they vary in size also. So I'm imagining that scaling back has been very different for you guys. Björg, you told me earlier that you now have around 25 employees. I'm not sure how many you had at the beginning of the pandemic. And Adam, you on the other hand, you were 2 guys. So I imagine that there are differences in how much you can scale back. I guess for you, Adam, it became a question of, should I stay or should I go? Or how did you guys manage these issues on your hand, keeping cash flow going and being able to stay in business, to be in business when the tourists came back? If we start with you, Adam, and then maybe go on to you, Björg, afterwards.
Yeah, well, there's only one way to get to Greenland, which is from Denmark. Well, 2 ways, or Iceland. But everything just closed down here, and we knew, well, we had to seek other paths, change a slight change in the plans, because, of course, when we founded the company, we had an idea of doing more expeditional style trips, private groups all along Greenland. But now we couldn't even really travel much around Greenland either. So we had to focus in the city. Mm-hmm. And try to make our products interesting for those, but also for the bigger companies. We offered helping out these bigger companies as the communication services, the weather station services, the companies we knew worked out in the field, out in the nature, because my buddy Torlak and I, we have a big experience in being out there, which helped out. We made things helping out bigger companies with whatever, because they also needed some help. As the thing is, in Greenland, a lot of the work that has to be done, we don't have all the skills here, so we get a lot of foreigners coming to do some work. Mm-hmm. And it's a closed country with the pandemic, so we could at least help out a little bit with that. But then also we made things with the local schools, like outdoor courses kind of for groups of kids. Yeah, we just had to think more local and still do the things out in the nature that we like to do. So and even though we didn't get the tourists, we still had some things to do. So exactly. It was actually, so in some way, for us it was healthy, because it made our vision broader, and especially in Greenland, where it's very seasonal based, we had to think of other opportunities to make everything running all year round. So
you got a lot of experience in product development very early on, developing new products for your services.
Definitely.
How was it for you, Björg?
You're mentioning the number of people working. When I was telling you earlier that we had I realized that we were 25 at the Christmas buffet last week. Things have been happening so fast, like you said, Thomas, earlier this year, that I honestly do pay the salaries, but I didn't realize how many we were. But we were there were like a similar number of employees when we closed down, and what we did is that we kept everybody until late May, and then we did end everybody's contract, because the authorities, of course, supported the 3 months resignation period in Iceland. So we used that time. But we just stayed closed until beginning of May, when we started opening up for smaller Icelandic groups. And then we somehow we managed to enter the wave. I would love to say that we were we were like one of the pioneers to make the wave, but we got like 600 Icelanders on hikes that summer. So I remember I had this operation on my knee on the 14th of May 2020. And the day after, I was sitting in the sofa with my feet flat on the sofa, and I I like handled bookings for 150 or 200 people that day, and it for 14 hours, and this just continued throughout the summer, and it was a fantastic summer. We also managed to, of course, this helped the restaurant a lot. So in a lot of ways, COVID has helped us implement products for the local market, and getting people by word of mouth, by digital support. We have had a lot more of Icelanders. We were able to, because we have a lot of the value chain ourselves. We sell the tours. So people came to us on a Friday night, and they stayed the whole weekend with us, with bigger hikes during one of the days. We supply them with food because we have the restaurant. We supply the accommodation, which helped us a lot as well. Besides this, when COVID hit again in August and this slowed down again, then being flexible as we are, even though we are that many, I mean, I'm the CEO, I do the dishes, I guide, I drive the big jeeps, I hike. I mean, it's still the same as when I started in 2013. But I went back to being a nurse in the autumn and just stayed partly with Midgard. Addi, my son, he used his sound engineering technique skills, and we changed Midgard Base Camp into a studio where all the locals, they started to give or record songs to give for presents for Christmas. I don't know if it was if the receiver of the gift was happy with it or not, but this became huge by the local, within the local market. So and some of us had kids, some of us went to school, so the flexibility was enormous. So we did manage by being flexible, but also by support by the authorities, from the authorities, and which I'm really, really happy for.
Mm-hmm. Important points being made there. I mean, as I think all of you guys mentioned in the beginning, a lot of this dialogue was with the government, figuring out where are we headed, what is going to happen, what can we do. But I also hear you talking a lot about innovation, new product development, and so on and so forth, but also mentioning your local markets. I've been told that in Finland, the domestic market originally was around 60% of tourism in Finland in general, which I believe is a lot higher than in the other Nordic countries, any of them, not just those represented today. But how was that market for you, Otto, in Finland at that time? The staycations, so-called. Did that help you guys? Did it change pricing or products that were being offered? What meaning did the staycations have for you? I believe you're muted, Otto. Sorry. No, we can hear you now.
Yep. Okay. So even before the COVID-19, domestic customers and domestic tourism has been important for us before, and it's a major part of our services. I think in 2019, the international tourism was about 20% of our business. So when the pandemic hit, we started thinking that the most potential part of our business is in the domestic people and local visitors. So that didn't change that much. We continued providing the services that we had offered them before, and it was really the whole outdoor industry in Finland. It was really booming during the COVID pandemic, and still is booming with the people really wanting to visit nature. So it was really good for us. But then we started thinking about how could we make our already existing local customers more involved, and we ended up developing this season pass system, which provides our customers with the possibility to use all our rental equipment for throughout the summer season. So basically, you pay for a certain price, and then you can use our kayaks, canoes, rowing boats, fat bikes, as you wish. And we made most of the service so that it's contactless. You can reserve the kayak on your own. You get the code for the storage and pick the kayak for yourself and visit the nature alone without contact. So that was something that we came up with during the pandemic, and it's just really big part of our business during this time.
That's really interesting to hear. How was it in the Faroe Islands? How was it for you, Tummas? Did domestic tourism also pick up, or is that a thing in general in the Faroes?
No, I'd say like domestic tourism picked up somewhat, but mostly for the people that rent out Airbnbs and stuff, like out in the villages. So they kind of had a really busy summer, like Suðuroy, for an example. Like a lot of Faroese people took the opportunity to visit Suðuroy in 2020, and they had a record year actually. But in general, like all the hotels here in the capital and all that was extremely slow. And domestic tourism, we did something with like company field trips and stuff. But in general, people kind of booked their Airbnbs and stuff, but that was it. It was not much business, so to speak. But as I said earlier on, the main focus in the company was to keep the relations good to the agents outside of the Faroes, to convince them that we were still here, keeping them up with the news, with the restrictions, etc. And you know, I worked with other stuff on the side, and then in the evenings I sat with the computer and worked. So it was kind of tough, like working hours. Like often I sat till 1 o'clock at the night working, and then up again doing other works at from 8 till 4, and then like the tourism stuff in the evenings into the nighttime. But it paid off in the end. I think that was the main, you know, to keep the focus that we set out with originally, to keep our focus on the markets that we had, to convince that we were still here and this was a safe and good destination to come to after all of this craziness was over. And it really paid out this summer.
But this is maybe what you're saying now is a big thing, and seems to have been the same in Finland and for us as well. It was a privilege being located in the countryside and offering nature experiences. So it's the same with the companies in the capital in Iceland. I think they struggled more last summer, the summer in 2020. So I think that was a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we saw the hotels here, you know, we had some brand new hotels, and they were selling really, really cheap rooms out to get people out from the villages to Tórshavn, like for a weekend. And it kind of went into like party mode every Saturday night in these brand new hotels. You know, people getting drunk, pretty much. It was a sad sight to see with all this, you know. There were higher ambitions when they opened the hotels.
So there are many sides to these stories, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. You know.
But do you think that locals' approach or opinions on tourism and your tourist companies, do you think that has changed during the pandemic?
Yeah, I think that out in these smaller villages where people, so to say, do not participate much within the tourism business, they had a great summer, you know, because there were no people there. They had it back to themselves, so to speak. And I think that, you know, reading the news from Iceland and elsewhere, they had the same experience. That, it was great. There was no tourism. It was fine, like it used to be 20 years ago. But in those regards, I guess some people think it was good to have a year off, and maybe in some ways it was a missed opportunity where you could maybe deal with some things that maybe didn't work with the tourism before COVID. Then you had like a year and a half off where you could tweak some things to kind of fix those things that didn't work. But we didn't do that. It kind of set off where it left off here.
Okay.
This summer.
I think when we talk about Iceland, I think my experience has been that a lot of Icelanders that hadn't been traveling domestically for the past years, that their eyes were open towards how much development has happened in the tourism industry, that they realized that there's so many products being offered that they didn't have any clue about. So at least it is my hope that is something that will encourage them to continue traveling domestically, even though we're now more able to travel internationally as well. What is your take on that, Björg?
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And I think we really need to work on this, though. We need to keep them on the hook. And I need to provide them with new products every single summer. The thing is that I love having the Icelanders around. I love having those hiking trips. We do a lot more now of like the hiking than the super jeeps. Not a lot more. Of course, when Iceland opened up again, we started the old our old way of doing it. But this connect the Icelanders. I mean, it's super nice to have both the categories. But I would like to follow up on what you said, Thomas, as well. I felt during the crisis and the local market and all those things, at first when Iceland started to say that they like now they had the possibility to travel, I felt similar to what I believe the bankers felt after the crisis in 2008 in Iceland. I felt like a kind of a guilt of having being responsible for like having all those tourists here before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a kind of maybe I'm like to be punished for this. So that was and of course, I mean, people's eyes open up because there's nothing else to do. But in Iceland, there has been a lot of place for everybody. You have been able to do what you have liked, but it seems to be like this mental hinder. And there was this young lady last summer that said to me, "You just need to realize the 101 syndrome, Björg." And 101 is, of course, the downtown Reykjavik. She said it is difficult for us to get out of town, and this somehow has like opened our eyes of the possibility of driving out of town.
Oh, wow.
And not going abroad, which I really hope to keep.
Exactly. That's a really interesting point. Adam, how do you feel about this in Greenland? Do you think you will keep the locals as customers once tourism starts picking up more again?
Yeah, I really hope so too. At the same point of view, it's actually been really, really interesting to see locals traveling around their own country here. I've heard a lot of locals talking about that the thing is in Greenland, it's a huge country and it's just as expensive to fly from here to Uummannaq, for example, as to fly to Denmark, pretty much. So domestic traveling is just as expensive as flying out of the country, which is super expensive. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the companies here in Greenland, one of the benefits of getting like this job instead of this job is that they often offer like a free ticket for the whole family to Denmark, a yearly or every second year. And that thing has been used domestically. And especially South Greenland, they had a lot of visitors from further up north, East Greenland, way up north. It's been used a lot, and I hope people will hang on to this because there's so many things to see in our own country that not all of us have experienced.
Exactly. I love how this may be changing how we do view our own destinations and what what positive things might come out of that. But we all know that guests usually don't just come by themselves. They don't find us, even if it's the domestic customers, they usually don't find us by themselves. So what did you do last year to attract these new customers? I know it's a bit different in Finland because such a high percentage of your tourists were domestic to start with, but I still imagine that you might have had to take some new channels into use and change your approach, your marketing strategy at that time. So how did you guys go about that?
Björg, what we did is that we are a small. Honestly, I have no clue if we are a small or a medium-sized. We are a rather small company. And our approach has always been kind of like the nice approach. We've shown a lot of ourselves. We have a video of ourselves on our homepage, and then we invite our guests somehow home. So it was like easy for us to open up during the pandemic to Icelanders and welcome them home to Midgard Base Camp. All of the owners, we do work there, so it's a kind of like really personalized as well. And we continued to send out, or Addi and Stefan mainly, they took videos of themselves during the pandemic in all kind of situations. Addi doing his like sound engineering, Hekla, we have the dog Hekla, they were out like hiking, they were like out swimming, they were doing whatever. So we just posted endlessly on Instagram and on Facebook, mainly on Instagram. And this worked really well. And we get quite a lot of people that have been following us for like few years now, and especially during the pandemic. So this is how we kept on going. When we opened up again, we made sure that we would check out on the flights, like from where the flights were coming. So we strengthened our AdWords at like those places. Mm-hmm. So this is basically what we did.
It's interesting. So what you're saying is that you continued creating, or maybe even created more content.
Yeah, a lot
than you did before. Yeah. And that's so interesting because I keep hearing, or at least kept hearing, tourism companies say during lockdown, there's nothing to do, we can't show anything. And I kept reminding them, show what's happening behind the scenes, show what kind of development you're working on, whatever you can do to keep that connection with your either previous guests or future guests, but kind of keep them warm so that they will come back once everything opens again. What was your approach to these things, like in the Faroe Islands and Finland, for example, to start with? If we go with the Faroese first, Tummas.
It was also a bit like using the Instagram just to show that, there was something going on. But like the Faroes are like super small. So within the Faroes, you were always like having your, feeling out, like we wanted to do something, and if someone had something going on, you say like, yeah, I'm here if you need anything and stuff like that. But as I said earlier, it was mainly just keeping focus on the agents outside, because like with the base of our business here, which was kind of small groups, individuals, more maybe a high-end segment, it's super important that you have a very good relationship with the agents. I feel that with us, it's more like the social media thing is much more for the individual travelers, and we get a lot of those as well. But keeping focus on the agents is more of a personal touch. It demands a bit more work, to say it as it is. Whereas posting online is fine as well, but it's more the emails and the phone calls actually.
Yeah, so lots of personal marketing being done during those times. Yeah. What about Finland? Is that the same story for you guys?
For us, I think when the pandemic hit and people in Finland started to think that like what they should do during the summer if they are not able to travel, for example, and really all like nature destinations started to rise up in population, and what we did, we focused on the content marketing and with the aim to provide new visitors also enough information that they would feel safe and clear to visit us and make the purchases online. So basically, if we take some rental products, for example, we just check that every product gives the customer enough information so that they can safely make the decision to visit us. And then also we already had lots of information about the destinations where we operate in, not just about our services, but for example, we take a national park where we operate in. We also give information about the local fireplaces, the local routes, so that people could find lots of information through us. And this also helped us with Google. So Google understood that from our website, people could find valuable information, and we aim to be on the top in the searches in Google, and that was the main point in our marketing, and it's been since, and it's been before. Our marketing is basically, the idea of it is to provide the people that are interested the needed information to visit us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
May I add a little bit into this, because I remember once it just popped up in my mind that I just last week I got like this mail from a lady that we made a video for, just like a personal video for her to give to her family for a Christmas present last year. I had been in touch with her a little bit before Christmas, and she wanted to come to Iceland. And then there was always this like postponing thing, and when she would be able to arrive. So I said, okay, we'll just make you a video that you can hand over to your like kids and your husband for a Christmas present. And of course she is coming now. And and I've of course been in touch with her during the.
That gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, and it was so nice. And we of course included Hekla, the dog, on it as well. And then when we started again, early spring, when we started to get the first requests, like in April, when everything went out of Schengen opening happened, I just decided, because I love making the itineraries and I love giving people advice, and I'm pretty good at it as well. And then I just decided that I would not book people. I would not make a lot of pre-bookings. Like if people contacted us, then I just said, okay, let's aim for this part of the island if you want to travel there, or if you want to come to us or whatever. I remember this guy that had been with us several times before, and then he wanted to do the west, and so okay, let's aim for that. And I was his personal advisor throughout his trip.
Oh wow!
So I just made the changes throughout his when he was here, and I did this with several people early spring. But then of course this became too much. But I would love to do this. But we had all the possibilities because nothing was booked. There was like all hotels were empty. Why stick to a certain part of the country and stay there in rain if you can be somewhere else?
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, use the opportunity while you have. And I got a lot of like guests from these people throughout the summer as well, which was really
because
nice.
That pays off. So what I hear you say is that there was a lot of personal touches. There was also just a lot of personalization in your approaches and speaking to the agents, to your existing customers. And then there was a lot of content creation going on. And speaking of content creation, I'm curious to know, what digital medias were you using before the pandemic hit? And has that changed in any way? And if so, in what way? So Adam, if you maybe tell us a bit about your approaches to content and, for example, social media, what are you guys using? What were you using and what are you using today?
We were and are still using mostly Instagram and Facebook. That's the two social media platforms we use. Especially on Instagram, we sold a lot. We focus a lot on great pictures from our experiences out there. And of course, with the pandemic, the material you wanted to use something a little bit different every time. And the material box just became smaller and smaller. So we actually used a lot of photos from our own adventures out there, because when we're not working with guests, we are out there anyways ourselves. And also started using, as it was mentioned before, to make it a little bit more personal, the stories behind, on our trips, the food we offer is primarily something we caught ourselves. So there's a story behind the food. Mm-hmm. So then under the pandemic, we used a lot of for weeks from our hunting trips, so people could see what's happening here, things like. But yeah, it's been mostly Instagram we've been using and still working on it. We feel like we're getting better and better at it. And even though we don't always use booking platforms, Instagram actually has been working pretty well for us. It's direct, with the direct mail. It becomes a little bit more personal than just clicking a button on the booking platform.
Exactly. And I can vouch, because I follow you guys on Instagram, that there is a lot of personal storytelling, good storytelling going on there. So job well done.
Thank you.
How about you, Otto, for example? Which digital platforms have you been using, and has there been a shift or a change during the pandemic?
Before the pandemic, I think, TripAdvisor was really, really important for us for the international visitors, and that was something that we wanted every visitor to go and give us a review, so that people would see that in Helsinki you would get quality service from us if you would visit. But then that one we haven't used for obvious reasons. We haven't used for 2 years, but now our main digital tool is our website, and then we use Facebook, and then we use Instagram. But we see our own website, and then also successful Google marketing as our main marketing tool.
Exactly. And do you think that change has come to stay? I mean, do you think you will ever be going back to TripAdvisor having the weight that it did before the pandemic?
I would say that we go back, of course, when the situation is so that people start visiting Helsinki and southern Finland again. It depends on, of course, the services that we are going to provide. Before the pandemic, we provided these daily tours, both in Helsinki Archipelago and then Nuuksio National Park. But and those products were really important to be in TripAdvisor. And if we continue with those products in the later future, then also TripAdvisor will be an important tool. But we'll see how it goes.
Thank you. How about you, Tummas? Has there been a shift, or has there been a shift in anything else in your business during COVID where you think this is a change that I would like to keep? This has been good for us.
Well, we were on more booking platforms out there, which kind of works very well. People kind of pick and choose, so you get a lot of different business from these portals. The only thing that it is a bit annoying that the commission is quite high to be on these online platforms. It's kind of frustrating, but we use them as well quite a lot. I think it's just super important to be out there, because in this business people are popping up constantly, and everyone will put their stuff on Instagram or Facebook, and if you're not putting something new on there every week or every second day, it gets a bit too slow, and people won't realize you're out there. So I say especially Instagram is a very important platform to be visible on. We try our best. And then to have a good website. We're working on to make a new website now. A lot of people go to the websites actually as well. They check you out on Instagram or wherever, and then they go to your website to see how that looks like. And I think that's your credibility is often on how your website looks like. That's where I think often people choose from how the website looks. Yeah.
Personally, I think you're absolutely right. How has this been for you, Björg? What has changed in your use of platforms, if anything? And do you think that change has come to stay?
I think maybe the emphasis on the content is what we realized. But I also think that the storytelling, I think it has more strengthened. We have a lot of storytelling on our homepage. I love when people come in and they do say hi. I saw you on the video. I saw the dog. Where is the dog? So people they know in a way what to expect. I usually, when people say it can be difficult to find you, that's just because we don't want everybody either. And I would love to stay there. We are definitely not for everybody. But I think the homepage, we did it quite well early on. Of course, we need to start looking into it, but we got our Slovenian friends that made an act. So there's a movie on it with us in. We are the actors. And the social media, and with us being this, and Steppi and Addi mainly being this active, we will continue this personal storytelling, giving people a part in our lives. That's what we will continue. And we will always continue this personalized part of it, and I think that has strengthened in COVID, to be honest, because we felt we wanted to give people a part of, and letting them know that we did miss them. We really missed them.
Exactly.
So I think that
it's true. We did miss you.
Oh, holy moly!
I think we can all
did miss them.
Relate to that.
We did miss them. Yes.
That's lovely. But I mean, if we look at tourism in general and businesses during COVID, now we are hosting this podcast and 3 of you are sitting in 3 different countries and 2 of us are here in Iceland. Everything that is remote has become so much easier to facilitate. We're also seeing more self-check-in at airports. Well, now that we have to hand over documents, there isn't a lot of self-check-in, but hotels are offering self-check-in. Restaurants are offering, menus off the iPad or scanning an app so that you don't have to touch anything. In business terms in general, and managing your own respective businesses, has there been a change in the digital solutions that you use in your businesses in any way? That was the heavy question of today. It could be anything from having people, if you have waivers, for example, for your tours, having people sign them digitally instead of handing over papers or iPads. It could be something like using different kinds of online media.
I actually went a little bit the other way when they came here. I wanted to be like, hey, everything is normal here,
That's just as interesting.
we can still shake hands, and you don't have to wear the mask when you're with me in the car here. And I think people really appreciated that. It's like getting away from all that craziness where everything has to be so, the distance between people. I think they've really, really enjoyed coming here, and everything was normal.
Yeah.
So I kind of tried to really focus on that. And like I had Corona in the start, so I wasn't too afraid of that, and I had to prove that I had antibodies, and I went to these, every second month to check on those. So like being with me was all good. So I kind of like, I wanted it to be normal when they were here. So
you could provide them with a pause from the pandemic.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's actually quite interesting.
Because like all the craziness where they came from, where everyone had to be masked, and you had to put alcohol on your hands constantly, and it's you can't enjoy a holiday like that. It's impossible.
How about you, Otto, in Finland? Have you taken any new digital solutions into your businesses, or has it changed in any way?
Well, the main change or development was the season passes, so that we had sold the season passes and 10-time passes before the COVID-19, and before that used to happen, so that people would send us email to book a kayak, for example. They would have to visit the customer service and state that they have the reservation, and then get to the sea after that. But with the new concept of the season pass, we went to that direction where people could just handle their reservation on their own, and also pick up the rental gear on their own. And
do you do that by app, or do you do that by what is the technical solution for that?
Well, basically it works so that when you reserve from the web shop, you will receive a code for that time period where your reservation is, and using that code you can open the doors and get the stuff that you need. But I think the pandemic was something that helped us and gave us one reason to develop this type of a thing. But then also I think the customers also appreciate it, because now they can go kayaking at 5 a.m. in the morning, and they can see the sunrise from the sea. So
exactly,
it helped to resolve other problems also, and not just being the contactless option. So
of course,
it's really important that we are developing that also during this summer more.
I think that's very true. And we also hear this from hotels and guest houses in Iceland, for example, who earlier didn't offer self-check-in. They maybe had someone waiting on site in the lobby or in the house, maybe for somewhere between 12 and 15 hours even, not knowing exactly when to expect their guests. But they wanted to do that because they felt it was a better service. It was more personalized. But then COVID happens, and a lot of the guests actually preferred self-check-in because they felt it was safer. So this has also, opened up to discussions as to when can you implement technical solutions that are both time and money saving, and guests still experiencing it as an enhancement of the service, and not something, that is necessarily worse. But I mean, I hear all of you say that the personal approach is really important. And I love hearing you say that, because we all know that travel and tourism is first and foremost about feelings. It's a product or a service unlike any else that we offer our guests. And if we don't have the personal aspect in it, and we don't have the feelings and the passion in it, then I think we're really on thin ice, no pun intended. I know there's a lot of thin ice in Greenland at the moment.
May I add to this a little bit? Because I totally agree on this, and we all seem to be on a similar page there. I think that our given the fact, in Iceland, that the bigger companies, they have been merging, so we do have a lot of the big ones becoming bigger, which I love, because then they have they become more digitalized. They become more streamlined,
yeah.
and they have they save money to do more marketing elsewhere, which brings guests to us as well.
Of course.
And then we need to establish our needs there. But this blend that you say, looking more into the digital solutions, but still of providing the personal service.
Exactly.
And for the travel plans, what we have added more into it is this offering of a meeting, Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, when we hand over a plan and then I meet face to face with the upcoming guest on going through the plan. I think they become more safe because our plans are not they are not super. They are not made in an app. No, and they're not, and we love not to have them detailed. If we are picking people up at the airport, then we love to be able to switch days depending on weather, and just for our guests to be able to see us, be in close contact with us before, then they get the trust. So this is our needs, and this is where we have established us with the bigger companies becoming like I say, more streamlined. So, but I would love still to become more, to open my eyes more for the digitalized solutions, and I think we need that.
I think those are really good last words on that subject. Not the last words with us today, though. It's kind of sad to go from something that is so personal and positive to going to my next question, which was going to be, in the darkest of scenarios, we hate going there, but we need to keep them in our minds as well. Now we're seeing a new version of COVID. Countries are discussing new lockdowns. Some have already closed their borders again. In those darkest moments, how do you prepare yourselves for a new lockdown or new closing of borders? I wish we didn't have to discuss it, but we kind of do. If we start with the Faroe Islands, Tummas.
Yeah, I think you have to have that into your future planning as it is now. So I cleared all the company's debt by the end of August. So I don't have to. I don't have any bigger worries now. So our accounts are good. We don't have any debt. So if they want to close it down, it sucks. But then that's what's going to happen. If COVID has taught us anything, is that we do not know anything. Decisions have been taken from one day to the other, and information changes constantly around what's going on. It's like you expect everything to get better, and then it gets worse. And when you think you can't get any more bad than this, then something else happens. It's
we've all been there.
Yeah, but you have to take that into consideration. But I think that if anything, COVID has really learned if you can survive this, you can pretty much survive anything. You're really up against the walls, and you have to be super creative to survive. And I think that has been quite good. And as with our smaller businesses, it's quite manageable. But it's very different to the bigger infrastructure here that we're also depending on. If the flight companies, the ferry companies, the bigger hotels, they need much more money than we do to survive. And the question is, can they afford another lockdown?
That is a very good question, and I think
because that's something that's out of our hands, but. I don't think they can, afford much more to survive. So yeah.
How do you feel about that, Adam? Is it an advantage that you are such a small and streamlined company? Does that make your future plans easier or more difficult?
No, we're pretty much in the same boat as you are, Thomas. It's the same. Depth 3, we've been there before. We just do it again. We're up for one time. No, in Greenland, actually, right now, these days, the pandemic, it hit us with the lockdown, but there hasn't been that many cases in Greenland until, 3 weeks ago. We were the only country left with no cases in the very beginning. But so we're actually locally, domestically first feeling it now. If everything goes back to like 2 years ago, that's just like Thomas. We're Depth 3. We'll sort it out. We work even harder on the local products, and that's pretty much it.
Excellent. I love the positivity, even when we're speaking about the darkest scenarios that are possible. Do you, Otto or Björg, have anything to add on that?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same situation. We the two brands of our business are different in depth, like depth-wise. The accommodation and the restaurant does have a lot more depths than the other part. And we even received this letter when we asked for a loan from the state, from the state during the pandemic, that the company was not expected to survive COVID-19. That's the Midgard base camp, because we just opened before the pandemic, or in 2017. But we had managed to change our debts right before the pandemic in February. So we have our loans are patient on that part. So we should be able to survive that. And we are like the other guys, we are flexible. I will just become a nurse again. And,
exactly.
And then I will just do some hiking. We will emphasize on the local market again. But I think this depth thing is a huge thing. And we have also tried to pay our debts during during the last summer, to be able to have our feet on the ground.
Excellent. Otto, is there anything to add on that on your side?
Well, not really. We were in a happy situation that much of our business consists of the domestic market, but of course we needed to pay attention that we serve those customers well and provide them new services and information on how to use it. And this is something that we would do again if the situation would go how it was in 2020.
Exactly. Let's hope it doesn't. And that kind of brings us on to a more positive topic, although the other question was very relevant to ask and to discuss. And I think you guys had some great insights on how you're managing to cope with those future scenarios. But if we go on to the fun part of being in the Nordics, what do you guys think is the main advantage, or do the Nordics in general have an advantage when it comes to post-COVID tourism? And if so, in what way? I don't know who. Hands up. Who wants to start with this one?
I can start this. I think I just want to add a little bit to which is also relevant to this. I mean, it's the closeness to the markets, to the local market, which of course is. I expect it to be easier in the Nordics than elsewhere. I mean, we now have a group of 1,500 people that we call Friends of Midgard, which we will be able to connect to if something happens. But I think that the emphasis on the not being in capitals, being out in nature, with low contact, if that's what people like, still personal contact. I think it seems to be, at least for those 4 companies that are here, definitely the big thing, which is kind of not unique, but it's easy for us also because of the the mature infrastructures in those countries as well, which are also support us. So I think we have an advantage.
You think we have an advantage? Do you guys agree?
Yeah, both yes and no. I think that that is not so crowded here. That's definitely an advantage. But I think we were a bit exposed to the fact that getting here, you have to cross a lot of borders on the way, and when you have different lockdowns everywhere around, it kind of blocked the way to the Faroes. I know in Iceland it was a bit easier when they opened up again, because they had flights to more international airports than you have in the Faroes, and because Denmark closed their borders towards Iceland, we didn't have any flights from Iceland to here. So I think we were very exposed to the fact that a lot of borders were closed, that you have to cross a lot of borders getting to here. So that was a bit difficult. It's hard to say that if we're going to be strengthened when this all is over, but I do think that we're not a crowded destination. That will definitely help. I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think
I'm not sure if it's an advantage either for us. For example, in Greenland, there's only one way out. It's pretty tough, and especially for the products we have in our company, which is something that we like ourselves, the more adventurous types kind of trips, is that the Greenlandic people are very, very close to nature here, and it's been tough for us to bring them on the trips we offer, because people are kind of used to it. But yeah, so if it's an advantage, I don't know. Being a Nordic country.
Mm-hmm. What, of course, is interesting, because now we're discussing Nordic countries, but the countries represented here in this podcast are Iceland, Faroes, Greenland, and Finland, where Finland is the only country where you have a real opportunity of driving or taking a train or getting there elsewhere than by plane. I mean, we do have ferries arriving in Iceland and also the Faroes and ships arriving in Greenland as well. But the vast majority of tourists arrive via plane. And I mean, this whole discussion has been going on since the beginning of the pandemic. Will people be willing to fly again? Luckily, I think we can agree that at this point we see that people will fly. Maybe we will never go quite back to where we were, where we didn't, even think about all the sicknesses, illnesses, all the bacteria that we might contact during international flights. But we see people flying again, so of course that is good. But I mean, remote areas, yes, it definitely sounds like an advantage when people are trying to stay away from big groups. But of course, the main question is, how fast will people, forget those issues, and how fast will people be dying to get back to New York City and London and even Seoul or those mega cities? Only time will tell. But we're nearing the end, and I'd love to hear if there are any. I mean, all of you guys who are here, you're so positive. You've been doing great work in your companies. You see a lot of future in tourism, which I'm really happy about. It would be a very sad podcast if we had reached the conclusion that the tourism in the Nordics was over. Luckily, we didn't. So I'm sure that you also have some insights or some tips that you could share with other tourism companies in the Nordics. Is there anything where you could say, we did this and it worked really well, and I really recommend that you do the same or focus on this or that? I know it's a deep question to be asked on the spot, but if there's anyone who's like dying to say, I know that this worked for us and I'd love to share that with someone else, and please go ahead.
Yeah, I think that I like, if you're a super optimist, this is it's gonna work out in the end. But it is a fact of trying to stay positive, to say that this is going to work out. It's not going to be lasting forever. And when it's going to, when it's going to be all over, people are going to be dying for traveling again. And everyone wants to go out there traveling, and business is going to be great. And I think that's what most people are holding on to in this business right now, is that everyone really, really want to go traveling in 2022. and in the future. So yeah.
So what you're saying is prepare for the masses. Is that your tip? If we sum it up?
I'd say, prepare for the masses. Control the masses is what I always say.
Yeah, definitely.
Control the masses. I like that. Yeah. Maybe you grabbed that one.
Yeah, definitely control the masses. I mean, I would love to see the authorities use this time as well to make a kind of a sustainability plan. I would love that. But I think for people that, like you said, stay positive, and I think for companies like ours, there is an element in any of us, or like all of us, that it makes us somehow get through this, and we want to come back to it because we are nurtured by what we are doing. So I think, there will always be guys like us out there that will be ready when there may be other guys, but there will always be somebody with that just like loves it. So
yes. And those are the people we definitely want to keep in the industry. Yeah. I think we can all agree on that. How about you, Adam and Otto? Any tips, tricks, whatever you might want to share with our listeners?
Well, pretty much the same. I think, as mentioned before, we're very much in the same boat, and it sounds like we do very much the same things, the same approach to things. Well, of course, slightly different, but prepare for it. Very good.
Be prepared. I think that's good advice, no matter what the scenarios might look like. But prepare for at least A and B, and maybe even C and D.
It's definitely.
Otto, anything to add?
For us, we found out that the customer behavior changed quite a bit when the COVID hit. We had, for example, we had the most used rental equipment in 2019. Only 20% of the people that purchased it bought it online. But when we looked after the first summer of COVID in 2020, the same number was 51%. So it turned out to be the online purchase turned out to be the most popular way of buying the product, and that is something that we learned, that the behavior of customers have been changed, and they want to book beforehand and plan, and this is something that we took up from the pandemic, and we are developing our services so that the customer would be happy to book beforehand, and we could also automate our processes.
Exactly. And I think that's great advice, because I believe there are a lot of companies out there who might not be aware of how customers have changed, how customer behavior has changed, how the different desires have changed over time. And in some instances, they may have not, but I think it's just always good advice to tell people, be aware, talk to them, ask them, find out what's working best. Do not just assume. Try to make your decisions also based on data. If you have that data available, if you can see how are people booking differently, how are they behaving differently, then make use of that data in your business. We're at the end of our discussion. I think we've had a really good discussion going on today. Great insights from you, all of you. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. I'd love to give you all a chance to, for the last round, just tell people where or how they can find you online, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who would love to go and check out your companies, check out your content, your personal stories, whatever else we have touched upon today. So if we just take the round, and I'll just start with the A, Adam, if you could tell us where our listeners can find you online.
Yeah, you can find us on, we have a website, tworavens.gl, as in Greenland. And but if you really want to follow what's happening in the company, see some nice pictures and what else we're doing, not only the company, but we post a little bit from our private adventures also. It's an Instagram, tworavens.gl again. We're on Facebook also. That's where you can find us.
Perfect. Thank you. And Björg, how can we find you in Midgard?
Yeah, we are on Instagram and we are on Facebook, of course. And then we have the web pages for both the companies. Midgard.is is the restaurant and the accommodation, and then midgardadventure.is. But I must also say that I'm going to search all your pages for sure. And I might come over for a visit.
Welcome.
Perfect. Even better. And Otto, how can we find you and your company?
Yeah, naturaviva.fi is our website, and we can be found also from Instagram, Naturaviva, and Facebook also, Naturaviva.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Tummas?
It's heimdaltours.com, and we also have Instagram, Heimdal Tours, and a Facebook, Heimdal Tours as well. So yeah, you can check it out online. And,
so we can all go and shop around and plan our next trips.
Yeah, I hope to see you here sometimes. I know that I will be in Iceland for Christmas, so maybe I will...
we will be here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we might catch up there. That's lovely. Again, thank you all so much for being with us today. And thanks to those who will be listening. I recommend that everybody go and check out dtnordics.com, where, as before mentioned, there is a lot of valuable content regarding digitalization in tourism, especially geared towards small and medium-sized companies in the Nordics, but of course available to everyone. And with that being said, I just say goodbye and almost Merry Christmas. That being said, take care, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.